Recording in progress.
Hello, Peacemakers. It's your girl, Dawn Stone, also known as the Conflict Chick, here with the second week of our deep dive in conflict resolution and the tools to help you be a more effective leader in the workplace and in life. So last week, I spoke about the incident at Harvard where we had Dr. Gay resigning from her position and how that circle of conflict and all the different factors that go into making a decision, having conflict show up in certain ways, and the things that we can do to move it through was covered then. And today we want to talk a little bit about what that was about, and then the triangle that is associated with Gary T. Furlong's tools that is in the book that I gave you. So I'll make sure you have that again this week. So just to recap, when looking at a situation on your job, there are 5 primary causes of conflict that one must consider. So whether it's resigning from a position, or hiring someone for a position, or having to make a decision about someone's performance, or having to ask for a raise, there are 5 factors that impact any source of conflict in your agency and within yourself. Number 1, there's things called relational or relationship conflict. This is where we have a miscommunication of some sort. We have strong emotions for various reasons. Maybe you really feel that you deserve that promotion. You really want to know why you didn't get it. Or you really wanted to hire this person, but somehow we ended up with a different person in position. Stereotyping is also a form of relationship conflict because maybe you have words with someone because you don't understand the report that they submitted, and then they may in turn feel a little slighted or targeted because you asked them about the data. And the last part of this is what we call repetitive negative behavior. Sometimes there are people in organizations that are acting out of a place that has absolutely nothing to do with you. Maybe it's a formal child wound, or maybe a wound as an adult where someone else has wronged them. That's why we talk about conflict being neutral. It's neither positive or negative. It's only positive or negative based on your response to the stimuli. So in this situation, you may have an employee who's just really irritable for whatever reason, and it may have nothing to do with you. So that's another type of conflict that you have from a relational standpoint. Next is data points. Show me the data. Lack of information is a way that we totally get lost in the sauce. Say you go to a meeting and someone calls a meeting for 1 hour and nothing's really covered and they're just basically talking around the table about things that could have been put in an email. We see that a lot in organizations. So really want to help you channel what that is for you and make sure that if it's something that can be delayed or put in an email, do so. Don't call a meeting just to call a meeting. Another form of data conflict is around misinformation. Maybe you don't have enough information to make a decision and you put out a press release for something that's not really press worthy. That can cause conflict within the team and within your organization. So just know that that's there. Another thing is different points of reference. My view and your view is totally different. And so until we in an environment where we understand that someone else's view and reality may not be yours, but it also cannot be diminished, that's where we get a lot of conflict, which is going to take us to this next key tool that I'm going to show you today. All right? Different interpretations. Data may be a point in time, and maybe a testimonial, and maybe one person reads it in one way and you read it in another. When it comes to conflict in the workplace, just understand, again, diversity is difference. Difference is diversity. There is no one right way to do anything. And so just being open and receptive to that is key, all right? Structural conflicts. These come from what I call, and I'm looking at my notes, comes from unequal authority. So today we're going to talk about this triangle effect where we look at a position and an interest and how these, when they're out of whack, causes us to be in conflict a little more than we should be. So unequal authority. So some people have what we call assumed authority, meaning I have a position as a chief and you are a associate and other things. I'm a senior vice president and you're just a director. And so when we think about language associated with all of that, it's important to understand that structural conflict is in place. And so as we build positions for people to fill, make sure you get input from the entire team and the person you plan to hire to ensure that what you've signed up for is what that you are actually requiring of them. Because a lot of conflict comes with structural issues when there is no clarity. Time constraints is another structural conflict for people. And what that looks like is if we have a meeting that starts at 9 o'clock, do not come in at 9:05 saying, oh, I'm sorry. That looks and feels harmful to some people because there are people who really have to hold on to their boundaries of time for varying reasons. I can look at myself as an example. Divorced mother of 3 kids, 6 to 21, there's always other stuff I can do. So if I'm booked a meeting with you and you booked a meeting with me and you don't show up, that shows disrespect. So we really want to make sure as we're rolling out throughout the year, we are consistent and that we are also, if you know you're going to be more than 5 minutes late, just reschedule. Don't do that to yourself or the other person because internally that can create some anxiety in you for being late. All right. Last 2 areas are value conflicts. And I talked last week about values. The things that are put into you at a very early age, the things that are even put into you from the DNA all matter in conflict. And so we have different ways of life. In fact, there is an activity I do called the blueprint, where I actually ask members of a particular group that I'm working with to fill this thing out. And the blueprint is 28 different things that you are that are unique to you. Even people in the same family have different answers. All right. So understanding that we value life in different ways, we expect different things, and being able to talk through those actively is how you really manage the conflict. You cannot make an assumption that anyone knows where you are coming from when you do not talk to them. I'll give you a classic example. There are people in agencies and in my own experience and in the clients that I've served that will say, oh, I don't like people in my business. My personal business is very personal. And then they get upset because someone asked why you missed a meeting, right? Again, sometimes we value privacy, but privacy also has a place. So the way that you can handle that to prevent the conflict is to say, hey, I've got some family emergency that I need to address, so I'll miss the meeting. So just have the respect to let them know you're not going to be there without telling them everything that's going on. It's a balance, and that comes from constant communication and setting and resetting expectations. The last one, ideologies, worldviews, things of that nature, we're all very different. Some of us practice different things. Some of us were brought up certain ways. We live in different countries, different places. We're our birth order is different. Our parenting, our upbringing is different. Our marital status, our views on life, our politics, all of these are very, very different. And so what we have to do inside organizations is to value those differences, acknowledge them, and learn more about them if there's for some reason gets you in a position where you feel a little threatened or a little annoyed. All right. So some people don't know, so it gives them anxiety. Other people don't care to know, so it gets them a little angry. So regardless of how you feel about someone else's value and the things that they value in life or lifestyle that may not be conducive to the way that you've been brought up and lived, it's okay. Reduce the conflict by understanding, reading, getting to know the person beyond the one identity that you have connected to or have disconnected to. And last is what we call interest conflict. What is an interest conflict? All right, I'm looking at my notes. So perceived or actual conflicts of interest. Perceived conflicts of interest could be this. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 19 years old, okay? Period. So longer than some of the people I've been working with. Very different from a lot of people that I work with. A lot of people aren't used to having a person work as hard as I do. Like I'm intense like this all the time. So if you work with me, you're like, oh my gosh, here she comes with those eyes. They used to call me with those surprise eyes, right? I was like, I'm just always on 10, ready to do some work, right? So this energy, right? That is a perception that flows differently depending on how you are, your identities, your values, your relationship with me, your need or lack of need for data, your structural constructs, right? And so when I walk into a space, you're like, oh my God, calm down. Or, hey, come on in, bring me the tea. Dawn's ready. Let's go. Right. So those interest conflicts cause a lot of conflict because of a lack of knowing. So if we look at my hand right here, this is a barrier. So those barriers could be any of the things that I was telling you. So as you're trying to give me information or I'm trying to give you information, if this wall is still here, you're not hearing me. You're not hearing everything that I say. So the only way to remove the wall is to really do some things. Look at our procedural interests. Look at the interest. How much time is it going to take us to get through it? How much time do you need to take to process it? How much time should we take to come together and find out what our collective plan is? All right. That's how the interest conflict shows up. And the last part of that is what we call psychological interests. Whoa. Okay. So we're going to talk about that in great detail. That's a totally other thing because I have a whole course on biases and making sure we understand our self-work and our root work before we move into other spaces. So what's a little different about the way that I teach that is I make sure you're aware of who you are first, because we cannot understand the language of DEI, the expectations of DEI, the limitations of DEI, the need for DEI if we don't first understand how we show up, how we are, how we're perceived, how we act and react. So that's a whole nother class. So we'll come back to that soon. So you'll see that maybe May. No, I'm gonna try to get in before May, April. We're gonna say April. So when we look at all these different causes of conflict, I want to bring you to today's tool from Furlong, and it is called the triangle. So I want you to think about the triangle, right? Basic triangle. So with the triangle effect, what Furlong says in his book is that, and you've got multiple tools. I want to have you go and get this book. He got the second edition. It's out there. It's on Thrift. It's on Barnes & Noble. It's on Amazon. It might be in your local bookstore. Go and look it up. All right. So the triangle of satisfaction. So if we think about the triangle that has three parts, all right, each of the parts or the points, the angles in the triangle are designed for three things. One is interests and wants. What is it in a conflict that that other person wants? So remember the wheel that I talked about. We talked about that in the context of the Harvard resignation, but I want you to think about that in the context of where you are in your work and where you are maybe in conflict with someone at work or at home. What is the thing that is your interest or your want? What is it that you want? And so if you think about scarcity of resources, because a lot of times someone's interest and want lies in that space. I want more time. I want that report. I want you to sit down and take a seat and stop talking so much. It could be all of those things, okay? But you think about the interest and want. I want your job. I don't think you deserve it, right? That might be a real thought of someone on your team today. So then as we move through that, then we flow over into the other angle and we say, what is that? What does that mean? What am I supposed to take from your want? Knowing that your want is rooted in this. You have a need, you have fears, you have hopes, you have concerns. All of these require what we call an intervention or a different approach to getting what you want or need, right? That's that one. And so there are three pieces, right? And each party feels that they are entitled to what they want or need. All right. So we think about the result. So in your triangle, I want you to think about this. What is the result I want? That's here. So this is my interest. What's the result of me getting what I want? Okay. That's how I want you to think about it. On the other side, how am I going to get it? That's the process. What process am I going to use to get the result, to get what I want? There's your triangle, all right? And then on the bottom, that bottom layer of that triangle is your emotion. How am I feeling? What am I thinking? Why am I thinking this? Because at the end of the day, your results, your process, and your emotion are all tied to your interest. And there are varying levels of all three. So as you think about that triangle and the things that you need in your triangle and the approaches for you to resolve conflict, just know that whoever else is in conflict with you has their own triangle. So then my question to you is, how do we get to the answer? How do we find out what that other person's interests and needs are? What results do they want? What's the process that they want to use to get to the result that they want? And what are their emotions telling you or not telling you? Okay. So the beauty of this triangle, and a lot of times I like to tell my clients, I write things out. I'm a visual learner and I'm also kinesthetic. So as you can see, I use my hands all the time. I ask them to write it out. So make a triangle on your paper. Next time you're in conflict, if you're in one now, I want to challenge you. Pull out a sheet of paper, draw a triangle. In the bottom left corner, I want you to write want. And in that triangle on the inside, I want you to write what it is that you want right there. Okay. Write it inside the triangle. If it takes your paragraph, do what you do. Pause the recording. Write what you want inside the triangle. On the outside line, I want you to write result. So you write the word result and you write what result you want. Okay. On for you, the left side, I want you to write process. And what process will you use to get what you want? And then on the bottom of that triangle, I want you to write the emotions you are feeling. What emotions are you feeling right now as it relates to that thing you want? So once you have filled that out, then I want to encourage you to set up an appointment with the other party and ask them to do the same thing. And then at that time, what you will do is have a conversation together to discuss your triangle. So this is, I give you the simplistic version of it. But if you want the long, drawn out version, you can get that from going into the book itself by George T. Furlong, Gary T. Furlong. And so what he will do is make sure that you have all the necessary pieces, but I've given you the blueprint because it came from him, second edition. All right. I'm going to model it for you in these last couple of minutes, just so you will know exactly how quick and easy it is. Something that I want is kids to clean house. Okay. My process is going to be to model it and do daily. My result is no clutter in house. And my emotions, I feel anxious, nervous, sometimes upset, and sometimes frustrated. All right. So this is what it looks like. And I want you to see that's a very simple example of how I wrote what I want, the need inside. You can fill the whole triangle if you want to. The emotions I feel about this. Okay, this is a real thing going on in my house. This is the result that I want. I want no clutter in the house. And guess what? It's got to start with me. And what am I going to do about it? The process, model it daily and do it daily. So every day in my house, what we are doing is this very thing because I want the kids to help close. I've been the only one that has cleaned the house consistently without asking. So if I model by doing something every single day, what I've noticed is that the kids are getting better and doing better instead of me picking up the slack. So hopefully that has helped you today. The Gary Furlong book is amazing. I'll put it in below in the video. And I want you to understand, I gave you an example of a personal example, but I want you to take that triangle and build one for yourself within your workforce and within your team. Maybe you've got a review coming up. Maybe you have a strategic plan or a project or a program that you need to fund or get a partnership with. How will you handle it? All right. Let me know how this has helped you. Let me know if it's something that you can do and have done, or if you need more clarity. Be sure to like, follow, jump in, and support the Conflict Chick on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and on LinkedIn as well, because this community is what's here to help and serve. And I have everything I want to dump to you, because I really, truly believe that if we learn to take care of one another, our world will naturally evolve into the people that we have been made to be and the people we desire to become, one conversation at a time. I'm Dawn Stone, also known as the Conflict Chick. I am out. We'll see you again next week for another quick tool. Peace.